Well, welcome everybody to our March online program for the alumni. And this month we're going to spend a few weeks looking at the ideas of Wayne Dyer. Sunshine Coast Health Center sponsored Wayne Dyer's new movie, Ambition to Meaning. And we did it for the Powell River community in one of the local theaters, and money went to the food bank. And this idea of ambition to meaning, what Dyer's basically saying is, look, when we're young, we're ambitious. And we want to make money, we want to buy a house, we want to get a nice shiny new car. And that's fairly normal for a young person. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. That's what television tells us to do. It's what society tells us to do. But he says in the afternoon of our life, or the evening of our lives, in other words, when we're getting older, then we have to move away from ambition and towards what he calls meaning, or living a meaningful life, a personally meaningful life. And so the whole point of this movie is to help people move from being ambitious to meaning. And Wayne Dyer puts it this way. He says, look, when you're young, you're driven by this thing called the ego. Ego is very big in addictions. It's an idea developed by Sigmund Freud. And the ego's job, according to Freud, is to deal with the outside world. And so what Wayne Dyer says is that people who are driven by the ego, people who are ambitious, are always driven by what's going on outside of them. If society says you should have a shiny new car, then they say, well, we better go get a shiny new car. And if society says to a woman, well, your role is to be a mother, then they become a mother, and that's it. So the ego is always what we call externally oriented, always oriented to the outside world. So if I'm oriented to the outside world, I get my self-esteem by what the outside world thinks of me. And I do things, not because I personally may want to do them, but because the outside world tells me to do it. And Dyer says, if you continue on living like this is a recipe for disaster. So the key is, you have to start looking inside, living life from the inside out. At any rate, it's kind of interesting because I got a phone call about a month ago from one of our alumnus. And he was telling me what a miserable time he's having in recovery. So I asked him what's going on. And this is what he told me. He said, well, I know we went through the family program, my wife and I, but, man, she's back on my case, just nagging me, doesn't trust me, and it's driving me crazy. And, there's this AA meeting that I like to go to, but I told her about one woman I met there. All of a sudden, she's jealous, so just to keep the peace, I don't go to that AA meeting anymore. And I always make sure I'm right back home after work because, God, if I'm half an hour late, I just get grilled and it's driving me crazy. At any rate, this is how this fellow's living his life. Sort of externally oriented. He's letting the outside world control him. So he's going to do things not because he believes in them, but because his wife doesn't. And the other thing, too, I think he's forgotten about Rule 62. And, of course, some of you who were here a couple of years ago heard that Rule 62 is don't take yourself so seriously. And that was interpreted as have fun in recovery. But what it actually means is don't take yourself so seriously because, frankly, you aren't that important. You don't have the power to control other people. And this fellow thinks that by doing these behaviors, he can control his wife. So he's sort of forgotten about Rule 62. He thinks he has some magical abilities to make his wife feel something or do something or think something simply by his actions. And then he tells me that he's starting to get cravings again. Go figure, eh? At any rate, this week's particular topic is on this external orientation, and so it's written up in the online program. And if you like, just read through it, answer the questions, send it back in, and see if you've still got an external orientation, or whether you're more in the recovery line, the internal orientation. But we'll deal with the internal stuff next week. Anyway, talk to you later.